I asked the university to block his access to the computer, and I was told nothing could be done. By December of 2005, he had been shut out of all the sites because of bad bank transactions. His fraternity brothers were asking for their money back so they could buy Christmas gifts for their family. Greg's grades were slipping, and he was descending into the pit of addiction. He became two different people. The weekend before his arrest, he ran a volleyball tournament to raise money for the local Boys and Girls Club. He had to make one more bet. So, with the bravado of a bluffing gambler, dressed as a typical college sophomore, Greg walked into a bank, waited in line, passed the note to a teller, and walked out with the money in his backpack. He was arrested that evening as he came into the College Arts Center on his way to orchestra practice. Greg has pleaded guilty to first-degree felony and is now serving 22 months to 10 years in Pennsylvania. After Greg's arrest, we sent him to a gambling rehab center, CORE, in Shreveport, Louisiana. He came home and said, "Dad, you never told me gambling was evil." You can't imagine a Baptist pastor not saying gambling is evil, but I never had taught that way to my children. And he realized how evil it was emotionally and intellectually and how it was damaging so many lives. This time next year, instead of watching my son receive his diploma from Lehigh University as president of his class, I'll be waiting proudly outside the gates of prison to see my son released. I will count myself fortunate because many dads have stood by the graves of their sons who took more drastic steps to end their addiction to internet gambling, which is suicide. Why tell my personal story for a piece of federal legislation? Well, Greg's story is being repeated in so many young lives. According to the AMA, the APA, up to 5% of all college students will become compulsive gamblers when exposed to the internet gambling. Are we willing to see up to 16 million new gambling addicts in our nation? Greg's story is one that recounts loss. I have met many people who have $30,000 to $50,000 in online gambling debts. Many people drop out of college. They drop out of life. They drop out of society to pursue online gambling. The World Series of Poker that's going on this week may be glamorous, but the life of an addicted gambler on the internet is not. It is just a series of broken hopes, promises, dreams, and lies. The question I ask this committee today is the same that the Apostle Paul asked the Romans. Shall we continue to do good, or shall we continue to do evil that good may prevail? The answer to that obviously is no. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And next, Mr. Michael Colopy from Aristotle International, who manages communications for Aristotle, and I know it was the first non-lawyer the Wall Street Journal noted to be a general partner in a U.S. law firm. I don't know if you were the last, but probably you're the first. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to add to your comment about John Stuart Mill. Your predecessor and my family friend, Bob Drinan, said years ago, referring to how some of these debates develop, that policy is often formed by the voices that are heard rather than the realities that exist. He said if René Descartes were alive today, he wouldn't say cogito ergo sum, he would say dico ergo sum. I speak, therefore I am. And so, reluctantly drawn by that dictum, I'm here today.
My predecessor, Father Drinan, was much more adept at Latin than I should acknowledge.
Moving right along. There are so many things that in his day and now have to be elucidated by these hearings, and that is why Aristotle, the company that is the leading provider of verification technology for most elected officials in the United States, and is also now the industry leader in online age and ID verification, insisted that I respond to your request and be here today. So I'm going to make a few generic remarks, and I want to address head-on some things that are said here today and that are put about by PR and interested parties in confusing an issue that must be seen clearly for policy to be framed in a coherent and effective manner. Number one, let's look at what society wants to do, which presumably is to do the right thing. Protect our most vulnerable members, mitigate risk of fraud and abuse and so on. And then the second question is, what is the market? What is the free enterprise system doing to address these issues? Those are two fundamental questions. First off, we have to point out to the fact that while time flies, technology rockets forward. That technologies that were discussed in just the last Congress are now almost obsolete. I know, for example, that there was a report aired in November 2005, which I believe we have, right? Let's have a look at it. This is from 60 Minutes, November 2005.
To test that, we gave Alex Hartman, the 16-year-old son of this story's producer, his dad's MasterCard.
Why can't a 16-year-old just pretend he's his father? You know, he can go online, he's got his father's credit card, and he reads you off all the numbers.
That 16-year-old's got to give me 4 to 5 pieces of information about him, relative to his bank account, his personal details, where he lives, and other things. So I could be 99% comfortable that this 16-year-old doesn't even get through my front door.
This is his front door. Payne's company owns Paradise Poker, and it appears that he's right. Something made the computer suspicious about Alex. Warnings kept popping up, you must be 18 or older, and then he was rejected. But then Alex did what most kids would. He tried another site, and another. On the third try, without any questions about his age, he was approved. In 5 minutes, Alex was playing roulette.
Place your bets, please.
In 10 minutes,
All right, all black.
he was $100 in the hole.
No.
Here's what I'm thinking. That the pool of potential underage gamblers is so much more enormous for you, the online company, than it is for the casino.
Without doubt, which is why we have to be 20 times better. But it's also why we also have to be regulated. Unless you force companies to have these procedures, you're letting them all in.
Payne argues that if the U.S. legalized iGaming, all of the problems associated with gambling could be better controlled.
Let's talk about then addicted gamblers, obsessive gamblers.
Yeah.
This is a huge problem for online gambling. They can just be at work, they can be home, it can be any hour of the day.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a huge problem for gambling, full stop.
But even worse,
including internet.
okay, but even worse for your form of it.
No,
Well, why not?
better for my form of it. Imagine you're an addicted gambler. You try and reload your account too quickly because you're playing too quickly. Stop.
So,
I've got a
okay.
closed loop of data. You can actually track what you do.
Mr. Chairman, many of the points you made resonate with this report. But as I said, that was in November of 2005. 60 Minutes re-aired it in November of 2006 because members here and elsewhere were saying they weren't aware that there were any technologies available that could age verify and identity verify. The court record that was referred to earlier is already being noted as an example of judicial opinion that is way behind the times. Right now, the company that I represent here today, Aristotle, and others, are doing tens of millions of high-risk verifications all the time. All the major motion picture studios that show R-rated trailers use the verification system to keep kids out. Tobacco sales. In the state of Virginia, it's on the books that you have to have online age verification. We have not had a single sale get through the system. California has similar rules. So do our
Internet sales.
Online internet sales and marketing. So I'd like to point out that, like 120 years ago, there's a great cartoon in Punch where two wealthy socialites are rolling along in a carriage, and on all sides of them are vehicles driving by, and one fancy lady says to the other, "They're show-offs. They say bold things about what they can do." That cartoon applies to much of what I hear being said now about online age and ID verification. I'm not making a bid for gaming in any form. I'm simply saying that we have to have an honest and truthful representation of what is possible. And that brings me to the second part of it. What's the market doing? Why does American Express use it? Why do 350 major financial institutions use it all the time? They're not doing it for their health. They're doing it to mitigate risk. They're doing it to make sure they're not sued for dealing with underage kids. On the